Is it Arch Manning? Is it Matthew Caldwell? The Texas quarterback situation is getting interesting. It's a college crossover. Here we go.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome in. It is a college crossover edition of the Locked On Podcast. It's the Locked On Vandy podcast and the Locked On Longhorns podcast. Joining me from the Locked On Longhorns podcast is Brad Kellner. And we got a lot to talk about. We're gonna talk about why teams continue to kick it to Ryan Niblett, because that guy might as well be, I don't want to say Devin Hester, because that's a class of its own, but it's about as close as you can get as a punt returner. He's dangerous. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how Texas plans to stop Diego Pavia in this Vanderbilt offense, where they're strong, where Vanderbilt's offense has a little bit of an edge, vice versa, all that. But we're going to start with the Texas quarterback situation. But before we get into any of that, I'd like to remind you guys that this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. And also, like and subscribe, Locked On Longhorns if you're not there, Locked On Vandy if you're not there. But, man, Brad, since you came on board, it's been a dream, dude. You've been doing a phenomenal job with Longhorns, so keep it up with that. And, man, you're crushing it, and just keep going, man. And it's been great. But here's what I want to talk about. And we had an interesting conversation before I hit record. So hopefully we can recreate this. But the Texas quarterback situation, it's the way that the Texas offense has been an enigma all year for one thing. And this quarterback situation this week doesn't make it any clearer. It's about as clear as mud right now. Early in the week, it's, hey, Manning's in protocol. He suffered a pretty bad concussion against Mississippi State late. He's been in protocol. Like, it's been pretty much like, hey, it's Matthew Caldwell's job this week. And then he's listed as questionable, and he might still trot out there. So first question is, do you think it's Arch Manning? Is there signs that you're hearing about that it's going to be Arch Manning? And if it is, how does that affect this offense? How does it affect his ability in decision making where it's already kind of slow? And how does it affect this team?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Corey, thanks for the kind words. I feel the same way about you and the job that you're doing with Locked On Vandy. And that's obviously the huge question for this game, right? You know, the good news for Texas, Arch Manning has been at practice the last couple of days. Now, I don't think he's doing a whole lot at practice, but just the fact that he's out there with his teammates is a good sign that maybe the concussion wasn't as bad as initially thought. Obviously, you couple that with, Wednesday night's injury report, him showing up as questionable means that, hey, there may be a chance that he does take the field on Saturday. Now, he's still in the concussion protocol, so he obviously has to be cleared by the doctors to even have a chance to give this one a go. But, a good sign for Texas. We'll obviously see what the report looks like tonight and tomorrow before we get to Saturday. And Arch is coming off his best game of the season. I mean, he was a huge part in Texas overcoming that 17-point fourth quarter deficit at Mississippi State. He was just throwing dime after dime after dime. And without much of a run game, the Longhorn offense played its best stretch of football of the season in the fourth quarter and in overtime. So, yeah, the hope is that he is able to go. But like you said, I mean, it's muddy waters right now. Matthew Caldwell has been getting the first team reps at practice. Caldwell's been working with the ones, so it's almost like Texas is preparing for all scenarios just in case. And Corey, I don't know if we're really going to get an answer until these teams take the field Saturday at 11 a.m.
That's a little gamesmanship by Steve Sarkisian, and hey, I'm here for it, man. I love the coach's gamesmanship, things like that, like just being kind of mum on that. But if it is Matthew Caldwell, and we'll get back to Arch here in a minute and kind of the progression of his season so far, which has been kind of a roller coaster. But for Matthew Caldwell, if it is Matthew Caldwell at the end of the day, what about Matthew Caldwell? What is Sark going to try to accomplish with him at quarterback?
Well, all Matthew Caldwell has done is, go 8 for 11, 85 yards and a touchdown so far at Texas. And he's thrown 2 passes in conference play. Both of them came in late game situations, and both of them he made huge plays, right? Texas in the Florida game, the Longhorns were down by 8 in the final minute. Arch Manning gets sacked, loses his helmet, so he has to leave for a play. Matthew Caldwell comes in, throws a beautiful deep in to Ryan Wingo for a 26-yard gain. Nice throw, nice play. Obviously, in that aforementioned game against Mississippi State, Arch Manning goes down. Matthew Caldwell comes in overtime, throws the game-winning touchdown, a beautiful fade route to Emmett Mosley in the corner of the end zone. So very, very small sample size. But whenever Matthew Caldwell has been called upon, Corey, he's been really good. Some Texas fans are calling him Matthew Coldwell because he's got ice.
Oh, he's got ice in his veins.
Yeah, you like that?
That's a good nickname. That really is a good nickname. So Texas fans, hats off to you. That's creativity right there. So with this offense, like what has been – because when I look at it, it screams like just inconsistency along the offensive line, because it's not a talent issue. It's definitely not that. And it's kind of does Arch Manning have time, like when it's been Arch Manning, does he have time to sit back and really digest this offense, progress through his reads, things like that? Like what is with this Texas offense? Why has it been such an enigma? Why has it been such a roller coaster? Yeah,
Corey, I think you hit the nail on the head. It starts up front. And you're being too nice calling this offensive line inconsistent, because really they've been consistently bad. They're a huge problem. And that's a big difference between these two teams. And credit Clark Lee and the job that he's done. You look at Vanderbilt's offensive line. You've got 4 graduates and a redshirt junior up front. Meanwhile, Texas lost 4 players from last year's offensive line. And instead of going out to the portal to get anybody, Texas is like, nah, we trust some of the young guys that we have. And those young guys just haven't been good this year.
You can't go young on offensive line. That's
no.
something we've learned through this portal era. You can't go young on the offensive line. LSU learned the hard way, and Brian Kelly, the other BK, is out of a job right now. So what do you notice about Vandy's defense? Like, what problems can they present for this Texas offense in your mind?
I mean, Vandy's so sound on both sides of the football, and they do everything right, and they've been winning on the lines of scrimmage this year. So, Texas's best game that they've played this season was the Oklahoma game in Dallas, and that was Texas's best performance in the trenches, right? On both lines of scrimmage, they were able to kind of impose their will and lean on the opposing defense a little bit. Vanderbilt, you look at some of their defensive stats, they're not getting a ton of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Like, they're not at the top of the league in sacks. They're just smart, they're sound, and they're good enough to win up front. So, I think just for Texas to do what it wants to do offensively in a game where they're not going to have a lot of possessions because of the style of play that Vanderbilt likes to employ, they've got to find a way to win up front. So, Corey, it's interesting. Like, Kentucky didn't have a great defensive line. Florida didn't have a great defensive line. Mississippi State didn't have a great defensive line until they played Texas. I think Vanderbilt's D-line is better than all 3 of those teams for the record, even though it might not be the best of the best in the conference. There's some talented dudes. There's some experience there. So basically, Vanderbilt's going to be a challenge. And if Texas doesn't bring its lunch pail and its hard hat, then it could be a struggle for this Longhorn offense and one of those downs on this roller coaster ride that you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that does, I guess make me nervous a little bit with this Texas offense is when they get the passing attack going, it falls into the upswing of the inconsistency with this Texas offense. Ryan Wingo's as good as anybody in the league at playing receiver. He's dynamic. He can make it happen. Getting CJ Baxter back has got to be a huge deal to add to Trey Wisner, and that's got to get that running game going a little bit. But to me, the way I see it against Vanderbilt's defense, if they can mount any semblance of a run game, I think that's where the advantage lies, because now they can go play action. Now that they can get these defenders coming up to play the run, Clark Lee is going to have to throw more bodies at the run game and put more defenders in the box for that. That leaves the passing attack, or that leaves the secondary exposed a little bit. And they've had some communication issues where teams have been able to get some big chunk yardage on them, is where they have a little miscommunication in the zones, especially in the Alabama game where they try to play a lot of cover 2 because they needed those hard corners to play the fast screens. There was that the safeties weren't getting over the top on that, and there's ton of space on the sideline. So it's things like that for Texas's offense. If they can hit some of that stuff and run a little bit, which Alabama had just enough success running the ball. They didn't dominate, but they had enough success to be able to make themselves dangerous and pull defenders down. Safeties were creeping down. They weren't getting over. And that's, to me, when you look at Texas's offense, if they can do that, they have the talent to do that. But is your front line going to allow that? And that's going to be the key to this game, at least in this Texas offense versus Vandy defense matchup.
Yeah, that's well said. And Texas, they're 14th in the SEC in rushing yards per game in just conference games. Now, they've got some better numbers overall, but those are inflated by some cupcake G5 teams early in the year. I think Vanderbilt's got the number 8 rush defense in the SEC, so they haven't been great at that, but that's been a huge problem for Texas. And everyone's going to focus on Arch. That's how it works when you're the quarterback. It is like times 100 when your last name is Manning. But the biggest problem with the Texas offense this year is they just have not been able to establish a consistent running game. And that is playing with fire against good teams if you are one-dimensional on offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's good up front. So, BK, how do you stop Diego Pavia? And we're going to talk about that because that's a task in and of itself. How do you stop Diego Pavia? What does this Vandy offense have to offer in this game, in this matchup? We're going to talk about all of that next. But first, I'm going to make some fun bets here on FanDuel. And guess what? The NBA is back too. And there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. I love the live betting. That's my favorite aspect. What do you like about FanDuel?
It's awesome, man. The live in-game betting is great, but also the player props, too, is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, those are good. Those are really good. That might be what I stick to if I go beyond football. So, it just makes it exciting, man. Like if I get a nice player prop, I'm going to watch a Jaguars versus Colts game that I usually don't care anything about. But if I got a player prop on Jonathan Taylor, hey, I'm going to watch it. And it just makes it exciting. But right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Never thought I'd hit Jonathan Taylor in a read, but here we go. Welcome back. It's a crossover edition, Locked On Longhorns, Locked On Vandy, joining forces to make one powerful episode here. Brad Kellner joining me. Brad Kellner, host of Locked On Longhorns. If you haven't subscribed, if you're missing out, you're truly missing out. And of course, like and subscribe, Locked On Vandy. So the thing that teams have been trying to figure out all season long, and except for Missouri and Bama to a certain extent, well, Bama really in the second half, more so. How do you stop Diego Pavia in this Vanderbilt offense? Like that's the golden question. And that's a tough thing to do. So with Texas and what they have talent-wise up front, Ethan Burke as an edge, he's going to be a really important defender. Every edge player every week is probably the most important defender on every defense that Vandy's going to face from here on out. Ethan Burke, is he going to be able to control the edge? What do you guys have on the interior at the linebacking position? Like, how are you guys going to shut down this Vanderbilt offense?
Well, before I answer that, Corey, can I ask you the same question? I mean, as a guy who's watched every snap of Vandy football this year, like, what do you think Texas needs to do to slow down one of the best players in college football?
I think you need to be patient. Watch the Missouri game if you really want to know. Their edge players, I think, played Diego Pavia beautifully. So on the option stuff, on the read stuff, they slow play it and force him to pull it. And they were athletic enough and long enough to be able to put their spikes in the ground and redirect and make it tough on Pavia. Now, he made his plays. He got his plays. But it was just few and far between. And running game wise, they were winning battles up front. Like their nose guard was winning battles. Their linebackers were flowing good. Trotter is one of the best linebackers in the conference. He's a hammer. He's a sledgehammer. And he comes down, he hits you. And they just played really well up front. And Vanderbilt really wasn't able to get much going otherwise because of that. But the thing that Vanderbilt did against Alabama when Alabama did all that was Alabama was able to turn them into an air raid team, which they are not an air raid team. They went out of identity and they ended up digging themselves deeper and deeper and deeper. Against Missouri, they were more patient. They stayed within their identity, even though it wasn't working, even though they were running into a brick wall a lot of times. Eventually, Missouri's defense got a little bit worn down, and they were able to have some avenues to score enough points. Vandy's defense was playing well enough that where they didn't need a ton of points. They only needed 17, obviously. And they were able to get those spots off a turnover for one of the scores, but they were able to hit an 80-yard run because the edge player misfit it. He got pinned. MK Young was able to get the edge, and off they go. So that for Texas's defense, they're going to have to be gap sound. They're going to have to play the edges really well and not let Diego Pavia run wild. LSU failed at that, even though they're athletically gifted enough, even though they're talented enough. They're way more talented if you just look at raw talent than Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt is just such a great unit that they just trump that completely.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, you look at some of the scores of the games that Vanderbilt has played, especially in conference play, and to me, they're like a college basketball team that like wins 64-58. And everyone's like, oh, their offense isn't very good. They're just good on defense. And that's why Vanderbilt is so efficient offensively. They just slow the game down so much that's why their scores aren't as high. I'm not telling you or your audience anything that you don't know. I'm telling the Texas audience that. Yeah. But Diego Pavia is a matchup nightmare. And what Texas was able to do in last year's game in Nashville was they kind of contained him, and they didn't let him do that Johnny Manziel improv that he does so well, especially on third down. Like last year, Vandy was 3 for 12 on third down. I think Diego Pavia had less than 160 yards passing. He had a couple of interceptions. Like Texas, they maintained their edge discipline. They maintained their rush lanes, and they were able to kind of confuse Diego Pavia at times. Now, he's gotten better, and Vanderbilt as a team, I think, is better this year than they were last year. Texas,
this team would blow out last year's team.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think last year's Texas team would probably blow out this year's Texas team. So there's good news there for Vanderbilt. But what Texas has that nobody, not even Alabama, has is Anthony Hill. And Anthony Hill was spying Diego Pavia a ton last year, and it caused problems. That's one thing I couldn't figure out why LSU didn't do. It's like you're playing man defense, you're turning your back, and you're just going to let Diego Pavia see all of this green grass in front of him. He's going to take off, and he's going to run. Anthony Hill is one of the best athletes in college football. He's a first-round pick in next April's NFL draft. If I'm Texas defensive coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski, I am saying, dude, don't let Diego Pavia go to the bathroom without following him. That guy wants a hot dog at halftime. You better go to the concession stand with him and go get that hot dog. I am not letting
steal it from him, right?
I'm not letting Diego Pavia's legs beat you. Now, easier said than done. He's so good, and Vandy's so crafty with Tim Beck on offense that he's going to find ways to get his yards. But you cannot let those improv breakdown plays turn into Diego Pavia running for 18 yards and a first down. So you said it, the discipline up front and on the edges, but really like having somebody just making sure Pavia doesn't do the crazy stuff that he does so well. That, I think, is the biggest key for this Longhorn defense.
Absolutely. And for Vanderbilt, I think it's so important to continue to get Eli Stowers even more involved than he actually is. Now, he's also a matchup nightmare for a lot of people. He also makes things tough, especially if teams want to play zone defense. It makes it challenging. And they've got Junior Sherrill, who I don't think is being utilized enough. Maybe he's not getting enough separation. He's the number one receiver. He's pretty good. He's got some good, strong hands. He's doing a lot better catching the ball this year, even though he had a big drop against Missouri. It's just this offense they have a three-headed attack. I think last year it was just Cedric Alexander and A.J. Newberry a little bit. He got banged up early in that game, so he went out, and it was pretty much just the Cedric Alexander show. This year, MK Young, A.J. Newberry, and Cedric Alexander is a three-headed monster at running back. You have Trey Richardson as a slot guy who's kind of a gadget player, Swiss Army knife type. And you have three tight ends. They could go 13 personnel and be dangerous too. So how does Texas match up with all those different personnel groupings?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, we talked about Arch Manning at the start of the show. What about the number 16 on defense, Michael Taft, the All-American safety, who
he's questionable too, right?
He's questionable. Yeah, he had thumb surgery last Monday, missed the game against Mississippi State. And it's no coincidence that Texas had its worst offensive game of the year without Michael Taft. He's an elite player, but he's also an elite communicator. Fifth-year senior, knows the system incredibly well, and just knows where everybody's supposed to be. So he does a great job. You think about Vanderbilt, who slows the game down and huddles before every snap. Having a guy like Michael Taft, giving him 30 to 35 seconds to say, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing that.
Move a lot pre-snap, which is valuable for a guy like Michael Taft because, even with all the movement, I think where they get teams with all that is they force guys to communicate, and then they jump back over and they have to communicate again, and a lot of times it gets lost in translation. Michael Taft is an elite communicator there. That's somebody that's extremely valuable. Yeah.
Bingo. But you said, communication, whether Taft is out there or not, it's so simple, Corey. It's easier said than done. There is no more do your job opponent to play against than Vanderbilt because they are so sound. Everybody is exactly where they're supposed to be at all times. And if you just like Texas in particular, Texas has better athletes than Vanderbilt does. If you just do your job on every play, then you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to contain this team, and Pavia is not going to have those crazy plays, and you're not going to get that MK Young 80-yard touchdown run where you're wondering what that safety number one was doing. You just took the total wrong angle. It's a do-your-job kind of game. But if one guy is out of position, Corey, that's where Vanderbilt gets you. That's where they get those explosive plays, and that obviously cannot happen in a game that's going to have a limited number of possessions.
Exactly. And they're so much more physical than they were a year ago. And that's also a big contributor as to why they're 7-1. They're physically beating up teams as well. And that's something that you don't normally associate with Vanderbilt. Like Vanderbilt's going to come out and just physically beat you down. But they're doing that this year, which with NIL, Vanderbilt has a lot of money, by the way. People don't understand how much money is in Vanderbilt. Like if they wanted to, they could be money-wise, they could be up there with Texas money-wise. It's just they've been too arrogant to spend it on football. But once they kind of realize, hey, we can make some noise in football, they might start spending. That's a different topic for a different day. But there's a lot of money there. So that's something that can improve over time with getting better players and better roster guys and keep building along the front. So let's talk about Ryan Niblett, but we're going to talk about him next because I want you to tell me about Mazda.
Oh, but before we get to that, let's talk about Mazda a little bit. You Vandy fans hear Corey talk about Mazda all the time. You Longhorn fans hear me talk about Mazda all the time. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. They deliver confidence with every ride. They have more IIHS top safety pick awards than anybody else. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but smooth handling, intuitive controls, plus maybe their best feature, all-wheel drive is standard in every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence throughout almost any season. Like Vanderbilt players, like Texas players, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It's Mazda. Move and be moved.
All right. We are, like the late Yogi Berra said, it's getting late early. So we are closing in on this show. Again, make sure you follow BK at Locked On Longhorns. Follow him on social media. Where can Vanderbilt fans come see you?
Yeah, Locked On Longhorns, you said it. YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And Locked On Horns is the Twitter and Instagram account if you want to check us out there.
All right, yeah. And, of course, for all you Texas fans, at Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms as well, to follow the show. And, of course, the same places you find your own show. Just type in Locked On Vandy instead of Locked On Longhorns. So Ryan Niblett, I've been dying to figure out, and I want to get into every single Oklahoma, and it's it's an arrogance that I don't understand, because that dude is such a weapon. Like, as a coach, I'm willing to sacrifice 15 yards, kicking it shorter, doing a sky punt or kicking it out of bounds. Hell, I'll take shanking the ball. Do not, like, you put it in his hands, it's going to be 6.
Yeah.
Why? Like, you probably can't answer that, and you're probably glad teams are stupid enough to do this. But why do they keep kicking to this guy?
You know, it's interesting, Corey. Like, after the first month or so of the season, there were a lot of Texas fans who wanted the Longhorns to make a change at punt returner, because for some reason Ryan Niblett it felt like he didn't want to catch the ball. Like, he was running away from the football. He was letting balls bounce. He was letting balls roll. And then all of a sudden, starting with the Oklahoma game, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna start returning some of these. It's like he was just waiting for SEC play, I guess, to unleash the weapon that he is. And I guess I'll give Oklahoma a little bit of a pass, because that was like his first big return of the year. But yeah, Kentucky and obviously Mississippi State in that spot, just inexcusably bad. You see why Jeff Lebby hasn't won an SEC game. You see why Mississippi State fans are already ready to make a move in Starkville. So I don't know. I mean, I've been praying to the football gods all week that Clark Lee is stupid enough to punt the ball to Ryan Niblett. I don't think he is. No. And look, it's college punters. I know Vandy special teams has been solid this year, but like, you could tell a college punter, hey, punt it out of bounds or angle it to the sideline, and they might screw it up. So maybe there's a chance Niblett gets one, but the guy is on the heater of all heaters right now. And Corey, you could make a strong argument. Texas, a team that is currently 3-1 in the SEC, would be 1-3 in the SEC without Ryan Niblett doing what he's done these past couple of weeks. He has been the game changer of all game changers. Absolutely. And teams have been avoiding Martell Height. They've been giving him unreturnable punts. They've been kicking out of bounds. They've been giving him a lot of fair catches. And the coverage teams have been doing a good job when he does have a returnable kick every once in a while. They've done a good job of closing in. And Martell Height is just as dangerous as anybody at returning, but teams don't seem to see that with Ryan Niblett. So in the special teams battle, right, obviously the return game is a very, very strong part of what y'all do. Kicking wise, game's on the line, 46-yarder is your guy banging it through. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Mason Shipley, first year at Texas, grad transfer from Texas State right up the road. If you asked me this question last week, I would have said no doubt. I mean, he hit some huge field goals against Kentucky, a big one late in regulation, the game winner in overtime on the road from 45 yards out. Like, okay, ice in his veins. Against Mississippi State, he missed a 26-yard chip shot. He had been perfect from inside 40 all year, and then somehow, some way missed that one. So I would say yes. I think both of these kickers in a big spot. Brock Taylor's been money. I don't think he's missed this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. Both of these kickers have been, knock on wood, have been nails. So I do think if either team is in a situation where a tie game or a team's down by 1 or 2 and you're trotting the kicker out in the final second to make you a kick, I feel like the kicking team's going to walk away with the win here. I think special teams are pretty solid on both sides in this one. Absolutely. Before we make our prediction, with all this hot seat stuff and coaching search stuff, obviously Clark Lee's seat is ice cold. I think Sark's seat is pretty cold, right? Like he's not on a hot seat. Where I think, do Texas fans worry about him jumping to the NFL though? Well, I don't know if anybody did before this past Saturday. There was that Diana Rossini report from ESPN where she said that Steve Sarkisian's people were reaching out to NFL teams about some potential openings. So, you know, Sark denied that. Sark's agent, Jimmy Sexton, released a statement denying that as well. We know word is not bond in coaching. People will say whatever they want, and then something can change, and all of a sudden they change their mind. So I don't know. I mean, I think most Texas fans feel like Sark is in it for the long haul. But is there a world where Steve Sarkisian does take an NFL head coaching job if he's offered? Yeah, I think so. He wouldn't leave for another college gig, but if the NFL came calling, a good situation in the NFL came calling, it wouldn't surprise me if at some point he decided to make the leap.
Yeah, and I wouldn't blame him. I mean, he's been a coordinator in the league too, so he's familiar with it. And I wouldn't blame him if he left. But yeah, he's not. I don't think he's anywhere close to getting fired. I don't think if they fire him, it'd be one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And he's definitely not leaving for any other college. Like, he's not going to Florida. He's not going. So if his name appears on a list, it's just for clicks. So, and as far as Clark Lee goes, like, obviously he's getting some interest, and I think he's gonna be talked about with Florida, with Penn State, probably with, and depending on how those jobs move, like let's say hypothetically Marcus Freeman gets offered one of those jobs and he takes it, there's some thought that Clark Lee might go to Notre Dame. I think he's done all but like a year of his schooling on the same street. Montgomery Bell Academy and Vanderbilt are probably 2.5 miles apart. And he did most of his school there. So I don't think he's leaving. I think he's got I think there's a lot of untapped resources at Vanderbilt that he's starting to tap into. And so I don't think he's going to leave. So
yeah.
BK, let's make a prediction. Give me a brief synopsis. How are they going to get there? I'm guessing you're picking Texas. So how do they do it?
I am picking Texas, but I don't know how they're going to do it. Honestly, I don't know how they won last week. I don't know how they won 2 weeks ago. They're just randomly finding ways to win. I know Vanderbilt's a lot better than Kentucky and Mississippi State, but I think 20-17 is the final. The Longhorns somehow get a win. To give some actual analysis, I do think Texas will be able to keep Diego Pavia in check. Nobody stops that dude, but I do think they'll do a good job containing him. I like Cedric Alexander, of course, Austin's own. Great story, great homecoming for him. Watched him play a couple of times in high school. Great kid, great player. I think Texas will do a good enough job against him and MK Young to slow down that Vandy rushing attack. And then offensively for Texas, it hasn't been pretty. There's no doubt about it, but I think they're able to do just enough. Maybe they're gifted a short field by a takeaway or a great punt return from Ryan Niblett. I think it's ugly. I think it's a dogfight, but ultimately I think our friends at FanDuel, Corey, are kind of right on the money. The line's 2.5 right now. I've got Texas by 3, and any Vandy fan who liked me before that now hates me. What say you?
Yeah, so get him. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think it's going to be a game where, because of the quarterback situation, that leads me to believe one of the main reasons for this week that leads me to believe that I think Vanderbilt is in the driver's seat here, because Texas is trying to figure out, okay, is it Arch Manning? How do we capitalize? Is he fully okay? Is his decision-making good? What do we do with Matt Caldwell? Like, he doesn't have a lot of sample size. He's talented. He's been to 4 colleges. He's not a rookie, but like, how does he, like, he hasn't still dealt with a lot of SEC speed consistently. He certainly hasn't dealt with the defensive scheme that Vanderbilt brings, that the Clark Lee, Steve Gregory scheme, which, does a lot. It makes up for a lot of the lack of talent. It's going to be a physical game up front. I think there's going to be a lot of hits, a lot of physicality, a lot of low scoring, some 3 and outs. But I do think, because of Texas's offense and their offensive line being inconsistent, or you said consistently bad, them not being able to protect very well, I think Vanderbilt's going to get a couple more 3 and outs. I think they're going to be able to hold the ball a little bit. And if Vandy can hold the ball and win time of possession, they win the game. And it's going to be one of those 3-point, 6-point games where it's like they just, no matter what Texas does, they just kind of keep nudging ahead. Like, LSU kept trying to fight back in the game. They could never really gain control of the game, even though they were hitting big plays, but they couldn't do it consistently enough. And Vanderbilt just kept the ball away from them. Yeah. Right. And I think it's going to play out kind of like that. I don't know if it's going to be as high scoring for Vanderbilt as it was in the LSU game, because Texas's defense is light years better than LSU's defense, which is weird to say because talent-wise they're not that far apart. But everything else, the whole just the running of the operation is way better. So for that reason, I think they're going to be able to keep Diego Pavia in check. But I think there's going to be a couple of instances where they can't, and that's going to be the difference. So I'm going to say 24-20.
Okay.
And that's my final.
Both of us are saying close game. I'd be surprised if it's not.
Yeah. No one's going to run away with this. I would be highly shocked, and there would have to be something go terribly wrong if Vanderbilt runs away with this game. And same, I think, with Texas. Like, I think, obviously the Bama score was a lot closer than the score indicated because they got that late exclamation point.
Yeah, that hurt. Let me tell you, that hurt. Thanks, FanDuel, for that one. Thanks, Vandy, for letting that one get away. Did not need that.
They had it covered too, man. That was crazy. Because I had the cover. I was like, well, I'm like, well, we lost, but at least it covered, right? And then boom, never mind. I lost everything. So anyway, well, that's going to do it here for this crossover episode of the Locked On Vandy and Locked On Longhorns podcast. And for Brad Kellner, make sure you check him out, like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube. Same with Locked On Vandy. Make sure you like, subscribe, and just keep it rolling, man. The Locked On family of SEC shows is phenomenal, and all 17 of them are great, including Locked On SEC. So all the teams and then Locked On SEC. So for Brad, I'm Corey. We'll see you back here next time. If you're going to the game, if you're going to Austin, be safe, have fun, enjoy the game, and of course, anchor down. Peace.